Robservations with Robert, Meyer, Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination, and, of course, your existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I am Robcasting at you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. I'm going to say right out, right up front, if you want to tune out, you can. I'm going to be very self-serving in this episode of Robservations, but if I wasn't, I wouldn't be doing my job, which you'll figure out or understand a little later. But yes, so as many of you know, you have listened to me wax rhapsodic, pontificate, bullshit, talk to you for 2.5 years, all about my amazing font, my wealth of knowledge about how the entertainment business works. Some of it is, very astute, if I do say so myself. Some of it, a little ill-considered. It's not always, I try and bring you at least my knowledge. I'm not beyond being corrected. Certainly, I would expect that to be corrected by certain people, and I have been. I've met some amazing people, some very big industry heavy hitters being on the show when I've made a mistake. And I know, right? Me? Moi? Make a mistake? My God, how can that be? Well, it happens. I know, even I make mistakes. But when you're speaking without a tightrope, or actually no, I'm speaking on it. I'm walking a tightrope, speaking without a net. That was what I was going for here. It happens. It happens. And so you can't always get it right. But the one thing that I've said before on this show I'm sorry, I'm still pulling something up here. The one thing on this show that I'm always trying to do is bring at least a little bit of my knowledge of the entertainment industry, of which I've been working professionally since the summer of 1989. So this would be my 32nd year working professionally in various aspects of the entertainment business. So I am trying to bring that knowledge with me when I am waxing rhapsodic about the entertainment business. And the only thing that allows me to do that is because I actually work in the entertainment business. And if I wasn't working, I just couldn't say half the shit that I say on the show. Because I would feel illegitimate. I mean, for me personally, I know that there's a lot of people that don't really care, but for me, if I couldn't believe in what I was saying, if I didn't, believe it, I just couldn't say it. There's nothing, I just couldn't do it. And so that's what gives me a little bit of, that's what keeps me going. I don't know what that says about me to all of you, but I hope it would at least show that at least my point of view is somewhat worth listening to, at least in the realms that I exist in. So as you all know, because you've been hearing about it forever, I've been working on the very definition of independent film. I've been working on a film. Uh-oh, are you really seeing that? Did I really fuck it up this bad? Probably. So I can't do anything professionally, apparently. So I was finding out this letter that I wanted to read to you, or this article. Now I'm all flustered. So as all of you know, I've been working on Tango Shalom. We started work on that. Basically, I started work on that in May of 2016. And over the course of the last 5 years, like many independent films have going on with them, it moves in fits and starts. And a lot of the time when true independent movies, Hollywood movies, they have all the money they need to make their movies up front. A lot of the time, independent movies are sort of pay as you go. So I hate to make movies that way. I would never make a movie that way, but a lot of people do. I would not, as I've learned, I would not start making a film until I had the entire production budget in place before you start rolling any film or digital capture equipment, whatever it is. I think it's irresponsible to make a film unless you can finish that movie. It's irresponsible to your investors. It's irresponsible to your cast and crew. It's just irresponsible in general. Now, a lot of people, they'll do whatever they can. Like if you go back and you listen to, say, how Don Coscarelli made Phantasm, one of my favorite indie movies, also one of my favorite horror films. He made it over 3 years. Tango Shalom was made over 5 years. For me, it was actually made over 6 years because I was involved after the film was shot. Almost a year after the film was shot. They didn't have an editor. So I was brought on board, and I was given a lot of creative leeway to make the movie. But if you out there are making independent features, do everyone a favor. Raise all the money you need to finish your film before you start it. And I mean realistically finish your film. If you expect to have certain what are called source cues, for instance, if you want to use popular music in your movie, you got to put that in your budget. Find out how much the songs you want to use cost and budget accordingly. Or figure out about sound alikes or whatever it is you're going to do. You owe it to yourselves as indie producers to make sure you can finish the movie that you start. That is the first, in my opinion, if you're an independent filmmaker, that's one of the first things that you should do. Because that way you know you're going to be able to finish what you start. There are many examples of movies that are made where the producers didn't budget them accordingly and they're still sitting on shelves. I've worked on films that were finished and they're still sitting on shelves. But for me, if you're going to make an independent feature film, you want to finish what you start. Otherwise, also another thing, presuppose that you're making a film for an audience. And what does that mean? Well, it means that I've worked on a lot of independent movies, some of them very good, where the story that's being told isn't necessarily audience friendly. And I'm not saying that you should compromise your vision necessarily, but remember, making a film presupposes that you're going to show it to an audience. So you always have to keep in mind that the movie that you're making must be audience friendly. Otherwise, why do it? Write a book. Publish your memoirs. But if you're making a movie, you're making a film for an audience. And I know this seems like, well, of course, Rob, that's an obvious thing. No, it's not as obvious as you might think. Remember, whatever movie you're making has to be watched by other people. Otherwise, it's sort of a futile endeavor. And that might be the snob in me talking, but you got to make it for an audience. You should have your money in place and make it for an audience, because it's no good to shoot your movie if you don't have enough money to finish your movie. Which brings me to me. Now, one day I'll do a whole thing on the making of Tango Shalom. Now, I'm not gonna tell you that story now because it's a long, convoluted tale. It's mostly beneficial. But for anybody, know now that Tango Shalom was completely an independent endeavor. There was no outside organization. It was all independent money that was raised by the producers and friends, family, anywhere they could go to find money. They themselves put up the majority of the funds, but whatever they could do to find the money, they did. So Tango Shalom is a truly independent film. People ask me, how much did Tango Shalom cost? Well, I'll tell you. It cost more than Clerks and less than Titanic. Let's put it that way. More toward the Clerks side. But it was not an expensive movie to make compared to, say, Christopher Nolan's latest film at the studio. It was truly an independent movie. Now, here's the thing. When you're making an independent movie, there is no guarantee. First of all, everybody that's working on the film, they all know it's going to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. You kind of have to know. That's part of what making an independent film is. You believe, man. More belief than Fox Mulder. You have to have conviction because you're putting your money, your mouth, where your talents seem to lie, whatever. It all goes into the same place, and that is to make the film. Nobody sets out to make a bad movie. Nobody. I don't care if you think you're making some cheesy, campy, whatever that might be to you. Everyone's trying to do a great job when they make a film. Making a movie is like alchemy, though. It really is like Rumpelstiltskin turning straw into gold. It's a very hard thing to do, and when you have a group of talented people that you're bringing together, especially on an independent movie, you certainly don't have the financial incentive, so sometimes it's really hard to keep your motley band of talented creators together under a single vision, or some would say under a single whip. It really depends. But anyway, assuming you get your movie made, the real victory is to get it seen. So the first place to have movies seen, you can show it to your friends and family, but that's not enough. You want to get it into film festivals, and film festivals are a real cutthroat business nowadays because, well, you want to go to the right festival. Because what you want to do is ultimately you want to attract distributors. And the distributors have to see your movie, and hopefully a distributor will like your film and pick it up. And hopefully, the best of all possible worlds, somehow a distributor sees a film that you've made that you didn't try and beg them to watch. They saw it in the wild, somehow. Maybe at a festival, who knows. But that distributor falls in love with your movie. And they call you. And they want to see what's going on with your film. And they decide, or they tell you, we want to distribute your film. And then you hope the distributor is a good distributor. And that you hope the people that you're going to work with are going to be transparent and on the up and up. Because hopefully you'd be able to make enough money to pay back your investors. In my case, my rule of thumb is to make a film and pay back your investors plus 30% on their money. So if they donate $1 to you, you give them back $1.30. Hopefully, you'll return their money to them within 24 months. That's probably a good bet. Some people want it in 18. Some people want it in a year. I won't get into the financing of independent movies, but whatever. And my rule of thumb is a 30% return on your money. So you get your principal back plus 30% within 24 months. That would be the ideal scenario for me in terms of things that I would want to produce. If I'm brought onto a project later, like in the case of Tango Shalom, I have no control over any of that. All I can try and do is make the movie the best it can be. In the case of Tango Shalom, I predominantly dealt with the director, Gabriel Bologna, the son of Joseph Bologna, the late Joseph Bologna, an Academy Award-nominated screenwriter, with his wife, Renee Taylor, who's also in the movie. You'll remember her from places like The Nanny or Don't Mess with the Zohar, working with Adam Sandler. But she goes back all the way. She was a regular on the Merv Griffin show in the 60s. Renee Taylor is a Hollywood and Broadway legend. So she's in the film as well. Karina Smirnoff, 20 seasons on Dancing with the Stars. She's in the movie too. By the way, she's great in the movie, if I do say so myself, having edited that performance that Gabe directed. But so anyway, we worked on Tango Shalom. I worked on it for 5 years. I was the editor. I was the post supervisor. I was the VFX supervisor. I had to make sure our VFX were created and delivered. We created VFX shots out of things that weren't going to be VFX shots, but we did. I was able to use Tobias Richter that I'd met on Prelude to Axanar and the Axanar feature I was working on, the Star Trek fan film project. I brought him on to do some effect shots on my good friend Darren Doctorman, who is the special effects supervisor on the Star Trek The Motion Picture Director's Edition. And he's been working in films for as long as I have. All the way back, actually, I think a year longer, because he worked on The Abyss. But I brought him on, and he did about 40 visual effects shots for us, doing a lot of wire removal, believe it or not, and also some comps, some augmentation TV stuff when things are playing on TV, or I needed somebody to add images onto screens. He did that. So I brought to bear all of my own talents and connections to make Tango Shalom a reality. Well, today, I can finally announce something that happened today. Tango Shalom, as you've all heard me talk about, probably you're sick to death of hearing me talk about this, so no one's watching this episode of this show, but let's hope they are. Let's hope independent filmmakers might learn something from this. But today, we get to announce, the press release went out, that Vision Films has acquired Tango Shalom for a worldwide release. I found out yesterday. They always talked about a theatrical release, which is the ultimate win for an independent feature. Yesterday on a conference call, I found out that not only were they going to commit to a theatrical release, but they wanted it to happen on either August 20th or August 27th, meaning less than 2 months from now. Right before the High Holy Days, right at the end of the summer, and I looked up those dates, and I found out there's 9 movies being released on the 20th and 3 currently being released on the 27th. So I thought it was academic. There's a lot less competition for a small, low-budget indie movie. Now, we're not going to have the advertising budget of a big studio movie. So you're probably going to hear me talking a lot about this film on the show, telling you where it's going to open. Please go see it in the theaters. Help us out. It will wind up on VOD at the end of October and on streaming services in the beginning of 2022. But let me read you that I was trying to pull up the press release for our film. This went out today. Los Angeles, June 30th, 2021. Los Angeles-based Vision Films has secured the worldwide rights to Tango Shalom from the people who brought you My Big Fat Greek Wedding. The long-awaited Joel Zwick comedy dance film includes Golden Globe nominee Lainie Kazan together again with Oscar-nominated Renee Taylor. It will be released theatrically in August and on VOD and DVD in October of 2021. Sweeping up awards at top film festivals worldwide, Tango Shalom is directed by Gabriel Bologna and produced by Jose and Claudio Laniato of Convivencia. I can never get this right. Convivencia Forever Films, co-written by Jose and Emmy and Academy Award nominated Joseph Bologna, who was in My Favorite Year and Blame It on Rio, Big Daddy, Lovers and Other Strangers. Produced by Joel Zwick, who directed My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and me, Robert Meyer Burnett of the Agent Cody Banks franchise, Zizi Bologna and Jody Caballero. The Laniato brothers, who collaborated with Joe Bologna on the script, are Egyptian Jewish refugees who fled with their family to Argentina, where they discovered tango. Besides being a family affair, both on and off the screen, Tango Shalom is being touted as the first film in history that was a joint collaboration with the Vatican, a Hasidic synagogue, a mosque, and a Sikh temple, promoting a very timely and timeless message of peace, tolerance, and love in these fraught times. I won't read the synopsis, but so far, our festival victories include winning the Best Comedy and Best Lead Actor at the 2021 Montreal Independent Film Festival. We won the Jaipur Critics' Best Film in Jaipur, India, the first festival the movie ever played. At the 2021 Toronto Film Channel Festival, we won Best Independent Film. At the Brooklyn Film Festival that happened last week that went to, we won Best Screenplay, and probably my favorite festival award at the Rabat Comedy International Film Festival. Rabat is a city, I believe, in Morocco. And the Comedy Film Festival is the first comedy film festival in the Arab world. Morocco obviously being in Africa, and this festival being the first comedy festival in the Arab world. And our film, which is traditionally dealing with, well, not traditionally, but is dealing with a Jewish family. There is an imam character in the film. But to have this film win the Audience Award at one of the first comedy in the Arab world, the Comedy Film Festival, is a huge coup to us. And so I was very tickled that we took the Audience Award, which means the audience votes on the film. So it's not the critics or the judges at the festival. It's actually the audience who saw the movie voted us the Audience Award, which could not make me happier. But one of the great things about this, our movie, that I think might be worth sharing is that the reason that this movie was picked up is there's a woman named Kristen Bedno. And now I didn't know, not Christian, it's Kristen, pardon me. Kristen Bedno, who I did not know. But it turns out she was a judge at the Brooklyn Film Festival where our movie played. So she was watching films for the festival and saw Tango Shalom, and she fell in love with it. And she's the president or vice president of marketing at Vision Films, and she decided we've got to distribute this. So it was the ultimate example. We win. You know, our independent movie is seen by a person that works at a distribution company. And let me tell you what's so great about Vision Films. A lot of its principals are women, which is unique in the distribution world like this. And that's how one of the things that how they build themselves. And we did a lot of calling around to filmmakers that had worked with Vision before. They have a lot of transparency. They have a very fair split with their filmmakers, and they treat their filmmakers really, really well. Also not something I'm used to in the independent film world. You know, no offense to people that do work in indie distribution. But my experience has always been what I think most filmmakers who have independent films, unless you're making a Swingers and somebody buys it for $5 million, you know, you got to take it as it lays, or play it as it lays, take it as it comes, whatever. I'm doing bad on my metaphors today. So for us, big win, epic win. I don't think we could have had a better situation for our film. The people that originally started making this movie, the cast and crew, it was been a 6-year odyssey of stops and starts, of COVID, of running out of money and finding more money to get the film made and doing whatever we could. We were uncompromising and trying to make this film the best it can be based on what we had to work with. And I'm very, of course, proud of the results. And for us, it's an epic win to have this kind of thing happen for our film. But I also think that it's a great testament because we tried to get all of our ducks in a row. We created our own trailers. We created our own marketing materials. I went and shot when I was in New York last year, right before the pandemic. I was there working on the Schmodown, and I took my camera, and I figured since everybody's around, we were going to have a screening of Tango Shalom. I was able to corral all the actors and sit them down and interview them, which we had banked. We had that material banked, so I can now have it to promote the film. And also, as a coming soon, hopefully, a feature-length documentary that will be on the eventual physical media of this movie, which I think is terrific. So here's a big shout-out to Vision Films and allowing us to do what we do. But it's also a testament to everybody, all the people that worked on this movie, everybody that worked very hard for very little money and got it out. For us, it's an incredible victory, and today I can announce that it is coming out theatrically August 27th from Vision Films. It will then be on VOD and then finally on streaming services probably in early 2022. And the movie is being taken by our great team at Vision Films to the Cannes Film Festival, where they're hopefully going to sell the movie internationally to all different territories, and it will be seen worldwide. So aside from the fact that me pushing the movie as it's coming out and trying to get everybody to see it, you won't have to listen to me talk about this movie anymore, because for us, this is really the end of the road. Certainly, when it comes out in theaters, you'll hear about it from me, but it really is a testament to perseverance, to the indie filmmaking spirit that exists, and I think it is an epic win for all of us. So that's pretty exciting. So I just wanted to, I just thought that would be something that you would all think. I wanted to tell you because I'm tickled. You know, it's good news. I'm sharing it, and I think what's really fun. So where I'm at in the process, I have to make a copy of the movie to submit to the MPAA. It's going to get rated, and that rating will go on the poster and everything. And I'm very excited to get this movie rated. I know it's the little things, but every time we do this, it just seems a little bit more real, which I certainly love. So there you go. Hopefully you won't have to listen to me talk about this movie as much anymore. But I mean, come on, I had to share it with you. Now let's see what you guys have to say. I've been gone for a couple days, so let's see what's going on. Hi, Rob. This is from our friend Stubble McShave. Hi, Rob. I was listening to Mark Maron interviewing Quentin Tarantino, and one thing that really struck a chord in me was how there are no real rugged movie stars today. Where are the Charles Bronsons and the Lee Marvins? I thought it funny, and in many ways true, that they said that Charlize Theron is more like Charles Bronson than any major male actor working today. The Charles Bronson and Lee Marvin types of actors made you think they were more or less the same in their normal life. Not shooting and killing people, of course, but being a real badass that you don't want to piss off. I don't know if the selection process and casting nowadays winnows away that type of actor. The studios probably want to have actors who are good in marketing their movies. In part, I get why they would do that. I wouldn't say that Lee Marvin was the most warm and funny person. An interviewer as well as moviegoers want to see a funny, happy person in the promotional material. Rob, can you think of any established actors working today under the age of 60 that have the same vibes as Charles Bronson and Lee Marvin? If not, what do you think the reason for that is? Is it the marketability of the actors or something else? Well, Stubble, since you gave me the number of 60, under 60, I think I'd be hard-pressed to find that out, but or to come up with a name, because I think, you know, the actors that come to mind automatically are people like Liam Neeson and Sylvester Stallone. I mean, clearly they can still kick ass, verging on 70 and in their 70s. But I think the reason being is that it is no longer necessarily a desirable thing in our culture to have people like Charles Bronson or like Lee Marvin. We've sort of moved on from those kinds of characters, which I think is unfortunate. You know, we have our movie stars. I think people like James Bond, Daniel Craig can be a rough and tumble guy. We've seen actors take on that mantle, but we don't have any more personas like John Wayne. These guys that built their careers on being tough guys. I just think that the whole idea of a tough guy is maybe an anachronism. Like when M said, Bond, you're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur, the relic of the Cold War. I mean, we don't even. I think one of the problems I think with our culture in terms of having these kinds of characters is we've sort of moved away from traditional gender roles. Men are also supposed to be sensitive now. They're supposed to be able to cry and be in touch with their emotions. And I think that part of what being an action hero in the days of yore were, or these tough guys, were that they might have had emotions, but they had it wasn't a thin veneer. They were rock solid. They were rock hard. A lot of these people came out of World War II. They were veterans, obviously. You could see the life experience they had written on their faces. They could kick ass, and you believe it. I don't think there's a lot of actors now, unless, you play into it. Like, look, even Dustin Hoffman, faced with the reality of what was going on with his wife and Straw Dogs, found his inner rage and was able to go after the people that wronged him. But I think our culture is just different. I think that's where we're at. People are not expecting that anymore, and it's seen as being anachronistic. Even though I'll tell you something, when the going gets tough, or some of the things that go on in our society, when we need those to occur, I think it'd be interesting to see who are going to be, who's going to be the next action star in the next 25 years. I think we definitely need them. Certainly our society needs people that can protect us, because I'll tell you something, we are slipping further and further and further into a mob rules mentality, a tribalism. We're going to need people both in our fictional lives and in real life, people that can step up and kick ass, because the way things are going, the way I see things going, the tribalism and the mob rule of where we're at, especially in our country right now, we're going to need forces. There's going to be a reckoning. And we're going to be in a world of hurt unless while we keep doing things like stupidly talking about defunding our police departments. I mean, even the people that would step up are being driven away. Look at what happened in Portland when you had a whole wing of the police department quit en masse. I mean, this is the kind of world we're living in. And one day we're going to have mob rule. And until we bring back the idea that one man or woman, Furiosa, she can make a difference. She will get up in your face and kill you if you threaten her. We need that. And I think it's really interesting that our culture has made it so, whether Charlize Theron in Atomic Blonde as Furiosa, now as Cypher in the Fast and Furious movies, I think you're right. Charlize Theron's one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life. But the fact that she will kick your ass shows where we're at in our culture. And we need people that can kick ass to stick around. So, yeah. Oh, well. Who knows where we're going to be? Pat Finch is written in. Pat Finch says, "This is my third letter. A while back, I was listening to one of your streams and on the future of Hollywood's relationship with YouTube. The Turks have figured out something that Hollywood hasn't. The Turkish film and TV industries have had a complex history starting in the 1950s, with the biggest Turkish hit film being Dracula Istanbul'da, Dracula in Istanbul, which was the birth of the Turkish Hollywood known as Yeşilçam. Yeşilçam? The golden age of Turkish cinema lasted from the 1960s to the early 1980s, when the industry basically died as a result of the introduction of VHS to the Turkish market in the early to mid-80s. The Turkish film industry came back in the late 90s, and today the Turkish TV and film industry has been growing in popularity across the Middle East, Asia, South America, and even in some parts of Europe. It's shocking. Hey, Baskin is a great Turkish horror film. It's shocking to think that an industry that would have been destroyed through VHS is now in a massive upsurge in popularity. One day, my Turkish classmates, Turkish classmates 1.5 years ago, recommended to me a popular Turkish historical drama, The Magnificent Century, about the reign of the greatest sultan in Ottoman history, Suleiman the Magnificent. What shocked me was most of the show's production company, Tim's, has done something different no other current Hollywood production company would ever do. You can watch The Magnificent Century in its entirety with English subtitles for free on YouTube right now. Later on, discovered you can even watch Turkish TV channels' live broadcasts on YouTube. This includes all the news channels, Fox Turkey, a TV show, or ATV, Show TV Turkey, Show TV Turk, Show TV Max Turkey, and Disney Star TV, and a few others. A good chunk of the Turkish film back catalog from the 1950s to as recent as a few years ago is also on YouTube for free through their respected YouTube channels. I used to date a girl that was actually a fairly popular actress in Turkey. She was born here, but no one knew her here. But she was her mom, Zarian Arbash was her mom's name, and her name was Daria Arbash. This creates she's passed away though. This creates an interesting question of why aren't these production companies selling these shows to a streaming service like Amazon Prime or Netflix? Well, they actually do. However, it's not to the same extent as it is in the US. Amazon Prime exists along Netflix. However, the Turkish public was angry when few popular participating films were placed on Netflix instead of going to theaters. This is because many rural and working-class Turkish families don't have the funds and or the internet connection to have a Netflix account, and many of these Turkish shows on YouTube had once aired on Turkish public broadcaster TRT. TRT doesn't have the same standings as other public broadcasters like the BBC in the UK or ABC Australia, so for TRT and for some Turkish production companies that don't have the streaming infrastructure like we do here in the US, it's much easier for them to simply post the entirety of their back catalog of shows and films on YouTube and to collect the ad revenue. On it, that Turkey doesn't have the same strict trademark and copyright laws as the US and Europe. So for many years, Turkish shows and films got away with stealing ideas, scenes, characters, and other copyrighted materials without any penalties. So you have a whole catalog of films, like I mentioned in the past, Turkish Star Wars and 3 Dev Adam with Mexican wrestler El Santo and Captain America versus the evil Turkish Spider-Man, for which you can't sell to a streaming service as it uses copyright material, so posted on YouTube for free with subtitles. The current Turkish political situation has also made it hard for some Turkish films and shows to be exported to a streamer or to be shown in theaters globally outside of Turkey. As some films like The Crazies have been banned in Germany, which is the largest Turkish population outside of Turkey, it's for overt political messaging, along with many other films and shows also being banned as a result of their political message. However, not all Turkish films and shows are plagued with political messages and can be fun to watch, and have even been nominated for Academy Awards, like Isle, Daughter of War, which was nominated for Best Foreign Film at the 2018 Academy Awards, as it's about the less-known Turkish involvement in the Korean War, and the real-life father-daughter relationship between a Turkish officer and an orphan girl he discovers on the battlefield that still continued after they reunited after being separated for 55 years. But the creme de la creme of Turkish cinema has to be, since it's the 15th anniversary of Superman Returns. Did you know there is a Turkish Superman Returns? Superman, I can't pronounce this. Superman Returns was released in 1979, a year after Donner's Superman, and uses the music theme from the iconic Donner film. Kant Tolger, the producer and director of Turkish Superman Returns, when doing the film was not a Superman fan at the time, but was actually a fan of Shazam from the original Captain Marvel serials from the 1940s. So in this film, there are quite a few Shazam references throughout it. In this letter, there's a link to Turkish Superman Returns from '79 with English subtitles, along with the live Turkish TV channels, and to the Neon Harbor YouTube channel, where a lot of information and documentaries on Turkish and other foreign rip-off cinema, which I recommend subscribing to. I would hope to be involved in a possible review of Turkish Superman Returns with you, along from Tom from Midnight's Edge, as he is a big Superman fan, to celebrate the 15th anniversary of Bryan Singer's Superman Returns. Surprisingly, Turkish TV shows on average are longer than some older Turkish movies at about 2 hours, as commercials are aired after and before the next show. As a result, the average Turkish soap opera episode is about 2 hours and 10 minutes. Well, that's crazy. That's from Pat Finch. Well, since Pat gave me the links, I'll put these in the live chat. Here is the link for the Turkish Superman Returns. So there you go. And Neon Harbor, I'll give you that too. This is YouTube's channel for Neon Harbor. And boy, I just clicked on it and there's techno music playing loudly in my ears. So there's that. So that's very interesting. I want to thank you for writing in. Always interesting to know about Turkish anything. I mean, I watched the horror film Baskin. I was really surprised they made that film in Turkey, but it was great. It was great. I loved it. Thought it was great. Prestonian writes in and says, Heidi ho, Rob. Hope today finds you well. And it should, because on this day 50 years ago, I don't know what day this is supposed to be, a revolutionary film was released in theaters. Ooh, I think that might have been today or yesterday. That widened children's eyes, whetted our sweet tooth for candies we could never get our hands on, and enraptured viewers in a world of pure imagination. That movie, Rob, as you may already know, is the movie adaptation of Roald Dahl's classic children's novel, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. This movie was groundbreaking in its own right, as many set pieces and vivid colors like these were never used before, at least not in a movie I'd seen, unless you consider The Wizard of Oz, but that was from a different era. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory won an Oscar for Best Original Score, as well as a Golden Globe nomination for Gene Wilder's role as Wonka. The motivation for the film adaptation came from Mel Stuart's, the director of the film's 10-year-old daughter, who read the book and asked him to make the movie. Mel then asked his producer friend, David L. Roper, whom his daughter called Uncle Dave, to get the rights for the book as well as financing from Quaker Oats in exchange for selling a new chocolate bar named the Wonka Bar. Now that's producing, kids. Many actors were considered for the role of Wonka, such as all 6 actors from Monty Python, as well as Peter Sellers, Fred Astaire, Joel Grey, and John Pertwee. Spike Mulligan was Stewart's first choice, while Peter Sellers wanted it so badly that he apparently begged Stewart for the role. But of course, it ultimately went to Gene Wilder, who only agreed to do it if there was a scene where he came out with a limp, got the cane stuck between 2 cobblestones, fell over, and did a somersault for the crowd. Wow, I didn't know that. Anyway, this was a childhood treasure of mine and my family. It comes out, by the way, this year. It comes out this week on 4K. I watch it over and over and could not count on both hands how many times I've seen it. My sister was an even bigger superfan at the time, so much so that she turned our back storage room into the nerve center of the factory by painting a 360-degree view of the room with exquisite detail, I might add. Wow, your sister was one crazy kid. However, as a kid, there were small elements of the movie that I felt were strange and a little horrifying, such as the chocolate river that I never accepted in my head was actually liquid chocolate. It only seemed to be a river of blood flowing straight out of the Dead Sea as a result of one of the 10 plagues. Also, some of the curtain-covered structure made me wonder if they were ever covered and if something sinister was lurking beneath them. But nothing on the traumatization list tops the tunnel scene. The crawling millipede on the man's upper lip, the chicken beheading, bah! That was a little much for what was supposed to be a kid-friendly film. Oh, come on, Prestonian, man up, grow a pair. Anyway, here's an image from the film location that I thought was neat. The top image is straight out of the film, and the bottom image is what looks like it was in 2020. For any of you who are familiar with the 1971 movie, it is the nobody ever goes in, nobody ever goes out scene. I thought it was cool. Sorry for the long letter. Hope all is well with everyone. And remember, if you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Well, I'm going to put this link to this image you sent in the live chat. So here you go. There it is. There's the link. I hope that maybe that link doesn't work. I don't know. Let me see if it does. Oh, it's Google. You know what? I don't think that link will work. Let me try that link again and put this Google link in instead. And there you go. That should work. Maybe. Possibly. Oh, man. It's not letting me do it. Oh, well. Just look up Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory filming locations front gate, and it'll send you to the link. So there you go. Wow, it certainly looks different now. But that's okay. It can look different now. I want to thank you for writing that in, Prestonian. Thank you very much. And yes, for all of you into physical media, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is coming out in 4K this week. Speaking of that, Omar94 writes in and says, "Hi, Rob, moderators of the Post-Geek Singularity. June 30th, 2021 marks the 50th anniversary of the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which was released on June 30th, 1971. Starring in the film was Gene Wilder as the titular character. While not a commercial success when it first came out, the film became beloved by many from repeated television viewings and successful home media sales. Interestingly, while the film has become beloved, Roald Dahl, whose book the film is based on, disowned it. He disliked various changes made to the film which differed from the book, and he especially disliked the casting of Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka, since Dahl's original choice was Spike Mulligan. Despite Dahl's personal feelings, the film holds a very special place in my heart, and I also cannot picture anyone else as Willy Wonka in that movie. What about Johnny Depp? Anyway, thanks, and live long and prosper. By the way, I was a Roald Dahl fiend when I was a kid, and if you like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, go back and read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and read the sequel, Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator, which is equally awesome. And yes, kids, they go into space. That's right. Way before Fast 9 did it, they go into space. This letter comes from Richard Stone. Richard says, I just wanted to say how much I love your show and viewpoints and many topics, especially Star Trek. Good for you, sir. You're a man who parks his shuttlecraft in my shuttle bay. I am a lifelong fan of the original series, especially the movies. I consider them my friends, especially after reading all the books that expanded the lore and added so many more adventures, far more than the 3 seasons we got. I love each time you talk about Star Trek and your love for it, which I share. I started listening to you about a year ago, and I've not been disappointed. I would love to write a longer letter about my love for Star Trek and some of the criticisms, disappointments, funny trivia, games, and ideas and feelings about the Star Trek universe at some point. Please do. Please write me an epic, long, sprawling letter about Star Trek. I promise you I will read the whole thing. Thank you for all you do, and please keep talking about Trek. Well, Richard, it's impossible not to, since it's basically my religion. I want to thank you for writing in. Twist my arm. I'll talk about Star Trek no matter what, wherever, whenever. I'll talk about it. So, yeah. Braxton Bowles writes in. Not Calvin, but Braxton. 6-year-old Braxton writes in. Hi, Rob. I'm so excited that the Star Trek convention in Las Vegas is only 7 weeks away. That's what my daddy told me. The thing I'm sad about is we'll only be there for Saturday, but the awesome thing is that is the day William Shatner will be there. I can't wait to see him and Nichelle Nichols will be there too, and I know she recruits for NASA, and I want to tell her I want to be an astronaut when I grow up, and I want to be the first man on Mars. Are you going to be at the convention? I hope so, because I want to meet you. Braxton Bowles, first man on Mars. Well, Braxton, first of all, I love that I live in a day and a time when I can actually say this. Being 6 or 7, there is a possibility you could actually be the first man on Mars or one of the first people on Mars. Of course, that means, and I'm going to tell you right now, you're in for a long, hard road in school. You're going to have to study harder than anyone else. Your probably best bet is to go into the military and become either a naval aviator or in the Air Force and fly jets. It's going to be tough. You're going to have to learn a lot. You're going to have to be smarter than anybody you know, including me, including Captain Kirk. But I think you can do it. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't. I am probably going to be at the Star Trek convention in Vegas. I will be there. I'm going to be on a panel on Friday, the Inglorious Trexperts panel, and maybe I'll be staying overnight. And now that I know you're going to be there on Saturday, I think I would be remiss if I didn't meet you in person and we did a little bit of a live broadcast, even if I have to use my camera on the show. So that would be fun. Braxton, I'm really excited that you're going to Las Vegas to go to the convention. It's the special 55-year celebration. How cool is that? And it's really cool that your dad is, in fact, taking you. So that's pretty neat. This one comes from Andrea. Andrea says, Hi, Rob. I've been watching you for over a year, and I finally got it together to send you a letter. Must be the English in me. There's been so many reboots of the 80s as these films were blockbusters, but why were they? Well, because they came off the back of the 70s. Dark Times, Lack of Hope, Watergate, Vietnam, gritty films like The French Connection, The Godfather, even The Exorcist. Then one film broke the 70s mold, and that was Star Wars. And there was hope for a whole generation. Films that followed in the 80s burst into this. The 80s films and 80s culture was the exact opposite of the 70s. Anything was possible, and in lots of ways it was. And it was about equality and opening the door, even if the 80s reality wasn't always this, as we now know. We had AIDS, unemployment, war, but the positivity still existed. So now Hollywood looks back and wants that success of those times and taking off in the feminist and gender stories of the 80s and 90s movies, but confusing the messaging of equality with new social justice warrior politics of equity and critical race theory, and they wonder why it doesn't work because the positivity, equality, and hope is non-existent. Was the 80s and 90s perfect? No, of course not, but they set us on the path we were getting to anyway in the aughts, real progression and tolerance. But somewhere along the way, we've lost this to ideology. So that moves me on to Superman Returns. After your 15-year review, I watched it again, and to be fair, I was never a hater. I can say that this film is good. A bit too long for a superhero film, but not by Zack Snyder standards. But the main problem that it was too late to be a sequel and too soon to be a new movie. As a person that saw Superman in the cinema, I did see it as a sequel, and I love this film. As Brian said on your Robservations, this was a love story to follow up Richard Donner's film, and I agree. I only watched the Richard Donner version of Superman 2 now. I've seen it, and in 2006, not enough kids would have got that feel from the original movies enough to enjoy it. I do think Lois in this film is one of the last strong women, has her own mind, independent, but she likes men. As I said, a good film, just lost between the times. Which brings me to my last point. Reboots. When I look at releases that were scheduled for 2021 before COVID, every single one was part of a franchise, a sequel, or a reboot. I cannot tell you how much my heart dropped. I was disappointed before anything was due to come out. What I wouldn't give for an original film right now. You and me, sister. I agree with you. You and I clearly park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. And not full of politics, just escapism and fun. I want a trailer where I don't know who these characters are. The trailer tells me the story and I can't guess what's coming. Rob, are we just getting old? And are there no stories left to tell, or are people just scared to tell their stories for people to make them up? Having grown up in an amazing time, the 80s, the 90s, and the aughts, we're constantly pushing the boundaries, especially in the UK compared to the States, when you see what we had on TV. It's so sad to see us going backwards now. It's not surprising that it is, in some ways, we do look to the groundbreaking days for inspiration, but ironically, with all the supposed progression we're making, these shows and films will never be made now. Stop looking back to see what worked then and take out all the things that made it work. That is not nostalgia and certainly not creativity. Probably should have covered these 3 topics in more detail in separate letters, and maybe I will. Well, please do so. Thanks for being a shining light in the darkness. Andrea and Dildon in chats. Okay, ANDILDN in chats. Well, thanks for writing in. I very much appreciate it. Look, I tend to agree with you. I think the 80s, in terms of pop culture, I think the 70s was an incredible era for film. But the 80s has always been a huge, I mean, not just because I was a young man, a teenager, and I moved from my adolescence into my teen years, into my young adulthood in the 80s, moved out of my house, broke free from the rents, I broke free from the rents to get my own rent. And that was kind of a fun thing to do. But I thought that pop culture in the 80s was all very exciting. A lot of breaking ground. We talked about, congratulations, by the way, to Scott Mance, Roger Lay Jr., and Mark Altman for getting their Kickstarter funded. Nice to have that angel come in and throw you about 60 G's over the weekend. Good job, fellows. But they're going to be making a movie, a documentary, 1982 Greatest Geek Year Ever. So kudos to them for making their goal. But yeah, that was a perfect example. The music, the movies, the fashion, the literature, genre literature. I mean, Stephen King was, when a book came out, hell, I would go line up to get the new Stephen King book. I read Firestarter in line for The Empire Strikes Back, probably while listening to the B-52's first album. I mean, what a time it was on my Walkman. What a time it was. I mean, my God, pop culture was heady and exciting and innovative, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, you could go to underage dance clubs, dance to Duran Duran while smoking your charms. It was a good time. I loved it. And you're right, Andrea. So thanks for that. Thanks for writing in. I very much appreciate it. Now I heard about this letter. Pedro told me about this letter. Pedro Ferreira. He said he'd written me a letter, and it's a doozy. I'm going to read it. Pedro, because I saw you talking about it on Twitter, and far be it for me to not read it, right? Rob, I hope you're well. I've had another round of severe anxiety symptoms, which is why I haven't been active in the community for some weeks. I want to talk to you about something that can contribute to anxiety issues, and I would like your thoughts. It's about toxic fandom. Now, a lot of people listening to this will roll their eyes, saying toxic fandom doesn't exist. I thought so too as I rolled my eyes when your pal Paul Jenkins proposed a documentary covering it, focusing predictably on the far right. I've become a victim of it recently, however, not in the way Paul Jenkins will end up covering it. It is my hope this story teaches those listening and reading what real toxic fandom is. There's a TV show that I'm a big fan of, long dead, but finally got around to forcing myself to watch the entire series of Sliders. Wow, okay. Now, the TV show itself is not important, but the traits of toxicity. The show ended in 2000, but the Sliders unofficial official forum has the same 10 people visiting it every week since it ended. I never posted there. I only read their posts for a few years. When you spend years in what is essentially an echo chamber, you cannot accept new views of people liking things that differ to what you like in the show. Q Today, in this particular sci-fi series, is getting more attention due to being shown on streaming service Peacock, while in the UK, the Horror Channel has been showing Sliders every year. Remember the Cro-Mags, that's what I always say. It's gained a whole new generation of fans who aren't even aware that forum exists. Meanwhile, that forum's views on the series haven't progressed since 2001. So it was in 2018 that the main mod of that forum, whose name I will only refer to as IB, found himself on the Sliders Facebook page. This guy, IB, over the years considers himself the authority on the show and won't let anybody have a differing view of it. He's quite well respected in the hardcore community for his masses of fan fiction. I love that there is a hardcore Sliders community. IB is suddenly confronted with a new generation of fans and normies who like things about the show he doesn't like. I'll try and keep this short as this letter will go on longer than it needs to, but a misunderstanding between us regarding his contribution to fandom set him off. Another was me questioning the lack of citations on his friend's fan website. Drove him crazy, and so he proceeded to spend Christmas spamming the Facebook page 10 times with articles he'd written calling me out. The last thing you want on Christmas Day is this kind of harassment. The Facebook page mod had enough and banned him. However, recently joining a Discord channel for this show, he was there. I knew it was him straight away, but I didn't try to incur his wrath, even though I was angry about what he did. I don't know, man. Sometimes incurring people's wrath is kind of good. Yet his disrespectful attitude towards people who aren't politically left-wing drove me up the wall, and I revealed myself. He then detailed what happened in half-truths, trying to make out I was the problem. The few other people there believed him over me. After all, I'm not left-wing and admitted to seeing a couple of good things Trump did in office, so I have to be the one in the wrong. One actor from the show is apparently a Trump supporter. We've now discovered I'm supposed to be some far-right Trump supporter, even though I'm not a massive fan of the guy, and politically I'm center, not right at all. IB then went on a political rant that supporting Trump is supporting racism, sexism, etc. He went on to say that white males are the cause of the issues, and they feel insecure about strong women being in positions of power. Well, unless they're behind those powerful white men with their riding crops. Oh, never mind. What's that? Being in positions of power, never mind the fact that a small group of Capitol Hill rioters were women. He started relating individual seasons of this series to presidential eras, and his mind had conformed Sliders to his own political beliefs, even though the show's creator isn't left-wing but a libertarian, which IB acknowledged. He boasted about being nasty to me, and he said he left the Facebook page before they banned him. He apparently left due to slut-shaming of one of the show's actresses, then proceeded to say there's nothing wrong with being a slut, but they shouldn't be shamed. Well, there isn't anything wrong with being a slut, but I think there is something wrong with using the term slut to refer to a woman who's in touch with her own sexuality, but that's neither here nor there. I am paraphrasing, but that is indeed what he said. Remember, I'm the one who's supposed to be the evil person here. He then blocked me, so he spends his time posting messages, trying to get the last word in, which leads me to having to correct him on stuff, and him not noticing until hours later because he blocked me. The guy, for all I know, might have Asperger's like me, but even though I do know how to treat others a little better, so no excuse for that behavior. I talked to the Discord mod who's desperate to keep members. The mod accidentally upset IB, and IB basically blackmailed the mod, saying he'll only return if message server privileges were given over to a friend of his, who, as it happens, shares his political views, so also now doesn't like me. I told the mod he shouldn't give in to this demand, but the mod is in denial and thinks he's in control. IB has tried to apologize to me, but it feels hollow somehow. I have now been told by the mod I need to stop calling out IB's disrespectful behavior towards Trump supporters and the cast and crew of the TV show because I'm upsetting him. The point of all this is I've been in situations with other progressive mods who have risen in power by using emotional blackmail and used that power to ban me for the wrong thinking from various websites I like going to. As a result, I cannot go back with those still in power. I would hope Paul Jenkins hears or reads this letter and takes what I'm saying into account when producing his documentary. We should not judge people on their political alignment, but what they're like as individuals. IB is around my age, so he should know this by now. The people Jenkins thinks might be victims, like Anita Sarkeesian, aren't necessarily that just because they're progressive. Let us not get people who are passionate about the future of a franchise mixed up with those that disrespect cast and crew personally or fans based on their politics. Kind regards, Pedro. Well, Pedro, here's what I have to say. Get off the sliders tip. Come on, man. Sliders? No, I'm kidding. I know. I actually kind of like sliders. I knew Tracy Torme a bit when the show was originally airing. We used to go to his house and hang out. One of the creators of Sliders, and when I wrote for Sci-Fi Universe magazine, we were definitely supporters of Sliders, and there's a lot of fun to be had on that show. But it's not a great show by any stretch of the imagination. And I think even the people that made Sliders would tell you that. But when you're dealing with somebody like IB, here's what I've found about fan circles. And I learned this when I was on message boards on AOL. Life is too short. All right? The people that get this passionately involved in TV shows that don't have any other interests outside of that, they're not worth your time. They're just not. I know it's going to be hard to extricate yourself from the Sliders fan community. I don't mean to poo-poo the Sliders fan community. And as you pointed out astutely, there are people that are going to see Sliders for the very first time on Peacock and in the UK that have never seen it before because the show is over 20 years old. And I understand that. And I think, boy, the Cro-Mags, they're going to have a comeback. You just never know. But people like that aren't worth your time. You know, the only thing, think about this, the only thing IB probably has going on in his life is his Sliders fandom. And you know what? As I've always said, everybody is king of their own hill. And when you visit their hill, just be a good guest. Be a good guest. Enjoy their hospitality, and if they're not very hospitable, then leave their hill. But when you go to someone's hill, clearly IB's hill is a online fan website for Sliders. If that's his hill, hey, why not just allow him that as the warrior, as Cyrus of the Gramercy Rift said, his turf, his little piece of turf. I would just stay off those servers, stay off the Discord server. There's other people. Go find some new fan sites that rose up over the airing of Peacock and over in the UK. Find new Sliders fans because clearly IB, he might be just a little too extreme. Little too extreme. But then again, I don't know because I don't know IB. But all I know is, gosh, boy, you just never know when it comes to Sliders. I don't know what to say. You know what I do know? I'm going to slip over and see what everybody's saying over here. Now, I wasn't on yesterday, so I'm going to see what you are having to say. And boy, let me tell you, this first tip, I've got to read this. This first tip comes in from Victoria Orozco. I think Orozco, is it? Victoria Orozco. Hello, Robert. What is your greatest fantasy and how can I make it come true? I'd even dress up as a sexy alien if you like. I am a sexy Latina transsexual who lives in Hollywood, pappy. Well, first of all, Victoria, I would say, well, that would be amazing. And, you know, if you were going to, like, bend me over and, you know, drive me home, a little pegging action, a little femdom action, I'd say, okay. But, unfortunately, I'm not single. And, Elizabeth was willing to indulge my every whim, to be honest. But that's not my ultimate fantasy. I just want you to know. I mean, I enjoy that kind of play, but it's not my ultimate fantasy. And to be honest, my ultimate fantasy would be if you could give me $75 million so I could make my latest film project and cast the people that I'd like to cast and go make this movie. Now, Victoria, if you can make that happen, I'm happy to meet you for coffee and talk about anything else. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But thank you. I am sure you are one sexy Latina transsexual. I do not deny it. Some of the most sexy trans people I've ever met are Latina. So all I can say is you go, girl. I'm with you. And if we ever meet in person, please introduce yourself. And, we'll go from there. But thank you very much. Louis Terrazas is here and sends in a tip and says, Rob, really perplexed. Bruh. I told you this one is an easy thing to figure out, not an enigma. Trust me, it was never going to make the dollars y'all had predicted. Trust me. If you ever want, I'm available to provide my movie business commentaries. I think Louis is referring to In the Heights, which I do not deny, Louis. I do not deny you probably know something about it. I didn't think it was going to necessarily make a ton of money. I was just surprised it didn't. I didn't think it was going to necessarily. I didn't have any really thoughts on it one way or another. I was excited to see it though. So there you go. Jack Wallace, my friend Jack, how are you? And his son saw F9 with my son, and when John Cena showed up, some guy yelled, "Oh, brother!" My son thought it was hysterical. The next time Cena came on, my son yelled, "Oh, brother!" The next Cena appearance, a few others joined in, and by the end, the whole theater was yelling, "Oh, brother." Man, that probably would have been more fun for me than the actual movie itself. Jack, I don't usually condone people talking in movies, but you know what? If your entire theater is participating in a running joke, more power to all of you, and I'm glad you had fun, because that would have made, I know it would have made my version or my viewing of that movie more fun, so I'm right there with you. Louis Terrazas sends in another tip. It says, Rob, I'm hearing some very disturbing insider talk about Indy 5. I've heard some of this too. I don't know if it's true. Rumors. It sounds bad, man. They're talking about what? Like a 3-month delay or something? Or 12 weeks or something? Keep in mind that I told you I'm as big a fan of the character and movies as you are and the community, but details matter, and I'd love to have a deep dive on this. Well, here's the thing. I don't like to necessarily address rumors about the ongoing production of movies. It's not usually my area of expertise because they're rumors. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know enough about it. If I can comment on a report, like what's been going on, I know that, look, shutting a movie down for any length of time is an incredibly difficult proposition because you have a schedule and there's cast. If you're going to let people go for weeks at a time, do you let them get other jobs? Or do you pay them? And that's a hugely expensive proposition. Do you get rid of all the camera equipment? Again, you have deals based on every day costs a certain amount. A movie like Indiana Jones, you're talking, I mean, you could very well be talking $1 million a day is being spent. And not being able to shoot, not even be able to pick up action scenes can be hugely problematic because if you're traveling, Harrison Ford needs to go to those places to shoot at least his close-ups. And with an Indiana Jones movie, green screen a lot of the time isn't going to fly. You have to be there. So it could be a real bummer. But I don't know anything about those rumors, so I can't speak to them. I don't know how true any of it is, but it wouldn't. Harrison Ford damaged his shoulder. It could be problematic. So I don't know yet, but we'll see. The lovely sends in a super chat and says, "Congratulations on Tango Shalom." Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Willow. Hello, Willow. Willow says, "Congratulations on Tango Shalom. I managed to catch the movie once online when you posted a link on Twitter several months ago. Hopefully I'll be able to see it in theaters. Are you working on your Oscar speech right now?" No, I was not, but I'll tell you something. It was very funny because that was brought up to our distributors, an Oscar campaign, and I was like, come on, man. Let's talk about just getting the movie out. Let's do that first and make sure we can make that work first. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Which is great. Brandon Sheehy says, Rob, I recently watched a read-through of Scott Pilgrim with Edgar Wright and the original actors. Made me realize how many people love this movie. It's such a creative time capsule of 2010 youth and pop culture. Can we officially declare it a cult classic? Yeah, I watched it the other day with Elizabeth, and I liked it more than I liked it the first time I saw it. I still have problems with the movie. I think there's a lot of things in it. I guess it's totally a cult classic. I would say definitely that's exactly what it is. Jason S. says, UFOs are real. The unidentified fucking organisms are roaming the streets and even the skies. Our current incompetent government has not yet been able to identify the encounter that Rob had with a xenomorph. Well, Jason S., I mean, I think, our government, they're trying to do the best they can. Are they incompetent? I don't know. Stock market and the economy, not doing so badly. Doing pretty well. Yeah, so we'll see about that. Louis Terrazas goes on to say, Rob, no, what the fuck. Depp was whack in the role. But yes, original gangster Wonka is an all-time film. I had a deep curiosity. Why has Hollywood been so opposed to making the sequel? You know it's true because it's always been dismissed in circles. Why? Is the glass story bad? I loved Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. I don't think it's bad at all. I love that story. I think it's fantastic. I love is it Vermicious? The Vermicious Knids? And the poem. Let's see. Attention please, don't dare talk, don't dare sneeze, don't dare doze or daydream. I can't remember it. Did any of you ever have the chance to meet a girl named Goldie Picklesweet, who on her 7th birthday went to stay with Granny down in Kent, and on the 2nd day of dearest little Goldie's stay, Grandma announced, I'm going to do some shopping in the town. And do you know why she didn't ask the girl to come along as well? Because she's really going to the nearest inn to buy herself a double gin. So out she creeps. She shuts the door, and Goldie, after making sure she's really by herself, goes quickly to the medicine shelf, where there her little greedy eyes see pills of every shape and size. Such fascinating colors, too. Some green, some pink, some brown, some blue. I used to know the whole thing. I don't know it anymore, but that was the poem that the Oompa Loompas sing in Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. The book, not the movie. So there you go. So I don't know why they wouldn't make that, because it was one of my favorite books, all the two of them, and I would read them over and over and over again, and I don't know. As a matter of fact, now I have to know. Poem, Oompa Loompa, because I haven't thought of that poem. I don't know. Oompa Poem, Great Glass Elevator. I don't know if it'll pop up. I don't even know if it's online. It's the song. I never knew it was a song. I only knew it was a poem. It's the complete. Oh, here we go. Attention, please. Don't dare talk. Don't dare sneeze. Don't dare doze or daydream. Stay awake. Your health, your very life's at stake. Ho ho, you say, that can't be me. Ha ha, we answer, wait and see. Did any of you ever meet a child called Goldie Pinklesweet? It was Pinklesweet, who on her 7th birthday went to stay with Granny down in Kent. And at lunchtime on the 2nd day of dearest little Goldie's stay, Granny announced, I'm going down to do some shopping in the town. Do you know why Granny didn't tell the child to come along as well? She's going to the nearest inn to buy herself a double gin. I did pretty good here. So out she creeps. She shuts the door, and Goldie, after making sure she's really by herself, this is exactly what I said, goes quickly to the medicine shelf, and there her little greedy eyes see pills of every shape and size. Right. Some green, some pink, some brown, some blue. Here's where I stopped. All right, she says, let's try the brown. She takes one pill and gulps it down. Yum, yum, she cries. Hooray, what fun. They're chocolate-coated, every one. She gobbles 5, she gobbles 10. She stops her gobbling only when the last pill's gone. There are no more. Slowly she rises from the floor. She stops, she hiccups. Oh dear, she starts to feel a trifle queer. You see, how could young Goldie know, for nobody had told her so, that Grandmama, her old relation, suffered from frightful constipation. This meant that every night she'd give herself a powerful laxative, and all the medicines that she'd bought were naturally of this sort. I won't go any further, but you get the idea. Man, why don't they make that? I want that. Can you imagine if they sang that song in a movie that it would be the greatest song ever. Scatological humor is never lost on the children, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. That would be some fine stuff. But now I've got to go. I have to memorize this again, because this song. And by the way, it is very, very long. So now now before it is too late. Take heed of Goldie's dreadful fate, and seriously, all jokes apart, do promise us across your heart that you will never help yourself to medicine from the medicine shelf. Man, I love that shit. Literally. I know you're going, oh, bad joke. I know, it's terrible. Emil Johansson said, Tango Shalom is an inspirational success story. Well, thank you, Emil. I like that. Stubble McShave says, the intro logo for World of Time was released with an official confirmation for 2021. The intro is an animation of the great serpent eating its own tail. Ooh, that's cool. Hashtag keeping Rob updated. Well, I appreciate that. I like being updated. Darth Plato says, if these Sliders peeps are a hard crowd, then you love UC Berkeley. My mom went to UC Berkeley. No, I really wouldn't. They are ideological fascists up there. They ban speakers because, we're so fragile that we can't take hearing a point of view we don't agree with, or a view we think is dangerous. No, what you need to do is hear those points of view so you know how to combat them. At least that's what I would say. NJR, that's like KJR Seattle, but NJR 1984 says, Rob, how excited were you in 1983 when you had 2 Bond films in 1 year? What are your thoughts on those 2 films? Now, our viewer, NJR, is talking about, of course, Octopussy and Never Say Never Again. I was totally excited. I will say this. The Kevin McClory thing, it was great to see Connery come back in the role, and I liked Never Say Never Again. I liked, Kim Basinger, Klaus Maria Brandauer, Barbara Carrera. Please write that the greatest rapture was afforded you on a boat in Nassau with Fatima Blush. Bond saying an agent can't give out endorsements. Come on. Lorenzo Semple wrote that script. I hated Michel Legrand's score in Never Say Never Again, and I hated the opening theme song. Actually, there was a guy in Australia who lived in Perth when I was working on Superman Returns in Australia that he actually took Never Say Never Again and rescored it with both John Barry and all other Bond scores, and it was pretty great, And he used History Repeating from the Propellerheads and Shirley Bassey as the opening theme song, which I thought was great. History Repeating, well, come on. And Octopussy, I liked Octopussy. It hasn't. I don't think it's aged very well, but I there's things about Octopussy that I like. Come on, Maude Adams comes back. Desmond Llewellyn, he was pretty funny. They have a hot air balloon in that movie. Louis Jourdan is Kamal Khan. There's a lot to like. Getting 2 Bond movies was cool. I think Octopussy opened like the last day of my sophomore year in high school, which was good. So, yeah. But I like them, but Never Say Never Again. I mean, I do. The video game ending is primitive, but there's that great motorcycle chase. There's some cool stuff in that movie, and I don't hate it. But it's a little wacky. The tone is all over the place because it's Lorenzo Semple Jr. Mr. Intellectual writes in and says, Sir Rob, have you seen the new movie America, the Motion Picture? It's on Netflix. My interest in this is how it pokes fun at these wokefuls in the digital spaces. I think you'll enjoy the jokes. My question for you is, how do you think it will arrive? I don't know. America, the Motion Picture. I don't know. I'll have to watch it, but I don't know it. I don't know. I'll have to check it out. How do I think it will arrive? I don't know what you mean quite by that. I'm not sure how it's going to arrive. The movie America, if will arrive, I'm not sure. So I apologize for that. Kevin sends in a super chat and says, Rob, did you see Quentin Tarantino was on Joe Rogan's podcast the other day? Yes, I watched him. I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of his takes, such as that 80s movies were a bad era of film as compared to the 70s. Well, okay, first of all, Quentin Tarantino, obviously, the 70s is a great era of motion pictures. It really is. But I think he astutely pointed out that you had a lot of really, I mean, he was talking about how you saw movies with characters that nobody liked, from Clockwork Orange to Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver, Butch Cassidy in the Sun. That's late 60s, right? But there were anti-heroes and people that were not likable that ended badly in a lot of ways. His beloved blaxploitation genre came into its own. I think that the 70s were, it was an era of grittiness and political incorrectness, where the 80s gave way to, as our earlier viewer said, it was a lot of fun. The 80s were fun. And while we did watch stories, even like The Verdict, which is one of my beloved movies, Paul Newman, oh my God, The Verdict, Sidney Lumet, that was a film that basically has a feel-good ending. In the 70s, it wouldn't have. It wouldn't have. But it does. And I think the 80s, I think Tarantino's not necessarily wrong about that. But the 70s were a time when I think it was a time where we had to come to grips with a lot of, it was, in a way, the 70s were a long, dark night of the soul. And at the same time, it was the me generation. Everyone was being selfish. And because how could you not, after the tumult of the 60s and the early 70s with Bobby Kennedy and John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King being assassinated, all of that upheaval because of the Vietnam War and all that. It was an interesting time, and the 80s were very different. You had the rise of conservatism, even Tipper Gore starting the PMRC, the Parents Music Resource Center, going, heavy metal music is bad. You know, we did have the AIDS epidemic. I mean, even James Bond was going to only sleep with one woman in Living Daylights. So I don't think Quentin Tarantino was necessarily wrong. But remember, he probably started working at his video store in the 80s and was mired in 70s films. Not that he didn't see movies from the 80s, but 80s movies were a lot more studio constructs. You know, you had brash filmmakers coming on the heels of Lucas and Spielberg wanting to make big entertainments that made a lot of money. And whereas the filmmakers of the 70s were digging into the grit of the American psyche, and it wasn't pleasant. And so it was a different era. So I agreed with him there. But he talked about a lot of things. And, you know, I don't necessarily think he had hot takes. I just think that he's very learned when it comes to pop culture. He knows his stuff. But I don't think he was necessarily wrong. Nick Parrish says, so, Rob, I detailed a prediction on Black Widow, but you missed my super chat mentioning it at the end of your last show. I did. It's all good, Rob, but can you please go back to it if there's not too many super chats and tell me what you think? Ooh, which last show, Nick? I'll go back and I'll see if I can find it. Let's see. I'll keep going back. Nick Parrish. Well, that was my last show. There you see. Do I go back further? Should I go back further to a different show, Nick? I know I've forgotten to read one person's super chat already that wrote me in, and I feel bad when I do that. I'm gonna get back to that too, by the way. I don't see Nick. I'm going back in the heights. I don't know, but I tried. Let's jump back up to where we were. I'll find it, Nick. I'll go back and look and find it. So I detailed a prediction on Black Widow, but you missed my super chat mentioning at the end of your last show. It's all good, Rob. Can you please go back to it if there's not too many super chats and tell me what you think? I don't know what your prediction is. We'll see. I don't know. We will see what happens with Black Widow. A lot of people, I watched Chris Stuckman's review. I was like, that's interesting. I like Chris Stuckman's reviews, and usually I'm pretty we are on the same, we usually think about things the same way, but I don't know. I'm going to see the movie first. I hope he's not totally correct. This will be one of these times I want to disagree with Chris Stuckman. I really want to like the movie, but we'll see. Evan Newman says, congrats on Tango Shalom getting picked up for release. Well, thank you. And a theatrical release at that, what a win, total win. My parents love to go dancing, so I sent them the trailer, and I'm sure they'll want to see it. Do you know how wide of a release it will get? I would imagine the release is going to be pretty small, to be honest. They're going to target very specific cities. I hope people will go out to see it. I mean, obviously, coming out of a pandemic, it's going to be tough to get people to come in. It's not exactly Marvel fare, but I'll certainly be pimping it out here, and you'll know all about it. I don't know how wide the release is going to be, however. But they're planning to keep it in theaters regionally for 2 months, so that's pretty good. I'm pretty excited. So thank you for that, Evan. Rick Squire says, I watch a lot of YouTube film documentaries, and I keep hearing that a lot of horror films took a decline in quality between the late 80s and early 90s as the MPAA became insanely strict. Would you agree that was the case? I don't necessarily know if that's the case. I just think that, I mean, I do know that, look, there was a lot of transgressive horror coming out of the 80s, and I'm trying to think of, that might be true, but the MPAA got stricter even in the early 80s. Friday the 13th Part 2 was heavily censored. The violence was heavily censored. And I remember being disappointed because you saw a lot more violence in Fangoria magazine. So I was bummed out. Yeah. But that was kind of a bummer. It really was. But, there was still great stuff that came out. I mean, I think about Seven. I think of Seven as a horror movie. I think Seven is a masterpiece. That movie got made in the mid-90s. It might not have shown a lot of gore, but it was pretty rough. And then we had movies like 8mm come out. But I know you're asking about specifically the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, I mean, I think horror might have... I'd have to go back and actually look. Well, let's see. Horror films of the early 90s. Let's see. The 40 best 90s horror films. Ooh, this list has dates, so I can see. I'll look at early 80s or early 90s. Let's go early. Well, these are all late 90s. People Under the Stairs, 91. That was pretty good. Gosh, all these are Night of the Living Dead, the remake. That was 1990. All right. All of these are late 90s. But I wouldn't say that those two movies. Jacob's Ladder was from 1990. That movie, I love Jacob's Ladder. That's pretty harsh. There's a lot of really disturbing imagery in that film. So I would say that doesn't fit. Tremors, 1990. Dead Alive. I mean, that's 93, and that's blood-drenched. I think that's pretty cool. Oh, you want to see something funny? I will, now that I'm looking at this is, oh, well, I can't. So, now that I'm looking at this, it's very funny. My ex-wife used to design for Lionsgate, and I'll put this up. This is so funny. My ex-wife, she's actually on this. This is her on the video cover, and I always thought this was funny. But since you're having me look at horror films, I'll just do this, and she'll probably be pissed that I even brought this up if she sees this. But I'll show this to you. This, my friends, as you watch, hang on, I'll switch over to this because I do find it. I always chuckle at this. I know I probably shouldn't, but I chuckle at it. So this is the cover of the video cover for Guillermo del Toro's Kronos. This is my ex-wife, Elena. Which I always thought that was funny because apparently they just couldn't find that art, so she recreated it. But that's kind of funny. So there you go. There's an interesting tidbit you might not have known about me. So more horror films. Arachnophobia, I mean, that was fun. Misery. I don't think that was toned down because of the MPAA. Silence of the Lambs. No, I think that the 90s had some pretty great horror films, but I don't think it was the MPAA's fault necessarily. Of course, I could be wrong. One never knows. But it's an interesting question, certainly. And I've now made my thing disappear. I found it. A good question. Now I want to go do research. Michael Preston says, do you feel that in Man of Steel, Zod had to die due to his motivations of subjugating the Earth, where in Superman 2, his motivation was revenge? So when Superman fled to his Fortress of Solitude, Zod followed. So why is it okay that Supes murdered Zod in Superman 2? I never got the idea that necessarily Superman murdered Zod in Superman 2. He took his powers away and kind of threw him down. Maybe it's in a super prison. He can't get out. I don't know. But I never got the idea that he was murdering those people. Whereas in Man of Steel, he straight up strangled Zod, cracked his neck with his superpowers. He had no choice. Superman had to kill Zod. It was an extinction level event. It was either him or me. It was either Superman and humanity or Zod, and he would have made Krypton in his own image on Earth. So I think I don't think they're different kinds of. I mean, I think Zod was misguided, but he wanted to rule Earth. He didn't come down and say, "I'm going to kill all these human beings." I mean, he would have killed a few, I guess. He killed some. People were collateral damage, but I think in Man of Steel he wasn't given a choice. Not given a choice. So. Yeah. Louis Terrazzo said, is there any way you can send me a digital copy of the rescored Never Say Never Again? I liked it a lot. Please, Rob. Dude, Louis, I don't even know where that disc is. It's probably somewhere in all my Superman 2 tapes. And I would have to go through those. And you know how many there are? A lot. A lot of tapes. There's like 1,500 tapes. But it's probably with those tapes. But I don't know. I don't know where those are. But I could look. If I found it, I'll remember you. You can have it. Darth Plato sends in a tip and says, Octopussy is my favorite Bond movie. I admit it. I love Steven Berkoff, no-nonsense approach as a Bond villain. Oh, he's great. We have 43 armored tank divisions in Czechoslovakia. The West is decadent and divided. A single thrust. No, he was Steven Berkoff, the 1-2 punch of Octopussy and Beverly Hills Cop. My God. Come on, Steven Berkoff was having a good year. I'm telling you. I'm in that. I'm skeptical about the nuke plot. Countries can tell what country a nuke comes from. There's no way to hide that it was a USSR bomb, not a bomb. It's true, but I don't think we all knew that we could actually figure out exactly where the nuclear material came from in a bomb. I didn't know that until Sum of All Fears. There you go. Nick Parrish comes back and says, so, Rob, I'm curious if you've ever seen a movie that you thought was Milli Vanilli BS but had a scene that was so hilarious you've watched it multiple times. For me, it's the Halloween resurrection scene when Busta Rhymes is cussing out Michael Myers. That's actually a good one. This scene tops Busta Rhymes beating Michael Myers with Kung Fu, especially since Busta Rhymes was wearing an imposter Michael Myers costume while cussing him out like he's his daddy. I ain't paying you to be Michael Myers. I'm playing Michael Myers. That's a pretty good one, Nick. That's pretty funny. Nothing like that ever comes to mind, though. A movie that was Milli Vanilli BS but had a scene that was so hilarious you've watched it multiple times. Well, I'll tell you. Probably Ryan O'Neal in Norman Mailer's Good Guys Don't Dance. The oh God, oh man, oh God, oh man. But that's as bad as the movie. So I don't know if it's the same thing, but that's the first thing. That's the first thing I that I thought of. Eric Gant sends a tip and says, what up, Rob? How on earth did Hollywood manage to produce and release a film called Octopussy or a movie with a character named Pussy Galore? Do you think these feats would be possible today? Peace. Well, Eric, Mr. Gant, no. I don't think you could get away with Octopussy, but it was the name of Fleming's story. So, they used it. And Pussy Galore, no, I don't even know. To this day, I know it was in the story. It was in Goldfinger. I don't know to this day how they got away with it. I unless you're talking about the character, I would hesitate to even use the term Pussy Galore in mixed company because you would get in trouble. But that was indeed the name of Honor Blackman's character. I'm Plenty O'Toole, named after your father, perhaps. Oh boy, I miss James Bond movies. Emilio Hansen says the 90s were messed up, especially for kids, and they totally bullied the 80s. Good thing the 2010s came along and made things better. Did they? Oh, let's hope they did. Look at all these people that became members. Oh, they're renewing your memberships. Thank you all for that. Anonymous, actually this is probably Nick, says, and to top it off, Michael looks stunned and walks off in disbelief that someone checked him. Oh, and my prediction for Black Widow is 100 million plus guaranteed. It sounds bold, but seat reservations look stronger than F9. Oh, I agree with you, Nick. I think we're definitely going to see Black Widow beat $100 million. I absolutely agree with you. And on that note, everyone, all of you kind people, I'm going to bring Robservations episode number 714 to an end. What a broadcast day this has been. This has been my third show. For those of you wondering about the Midnighter, I didn't have one last night. We cannot have one tonight. We have heard, this is going to suck, by the way, from our power company. They're turning off the electricity in our area at night. Cue the movie, cue the people pulling heists. Yeah, so I guess I'm going to be, maybe I could do it'd be kind of fun to do a Midnighter stream from my phone, because I can stream from my phone. That would be actually kind of funny. Sitting in bed in the dark with Elizabeth streaming live, doing a Midnighter. Could be fun, maybe, but probably not. Anyway, or wait a minute, is that tonight? Yeah, it is tonight. It's tonight. But I'll be back on Thursday night for a Midnighter. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm not on the John Campea show. I'll be back with Robservations and a Midnighter. So, all of that. So, anyway, I want to thank my great moderating staff. Bunyan Snipe is here. Is here. Louise X. Sparrow. The Richard. Joshua Levesque. You're all here. I think I got all of you. I want to thank you all for supporting the channel via tips and super chats. That's all very nice of you. And, of course, what else can I say? I don't know. All I can say is send letters to me at the Burnettwork.net website. And remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I would say to all of you, have a better day.